How much of what you remember from your last island trip would still exist if the photos disappeared? Most island vacations are built around the display of white sand and turquoise water. The drink at sunset looks exactly like the one from social media. You come home with a full camera roll and a feeling that something was just slightly out of reach. The islands on this list each have something underneath the surface of sand and sea. A myth, a history, a sensory layer. Our choices of 5 island destinations reward the traveler who shows up wanting more than a change of scenery. The word island does a lot of work in travel marketing. It promises seclusion, simplicity, escape. What it rarely promises is depth. And depth is exactly what separates an island trip you describe for years from one you scroll past in your own pictures 6 months later. From the Bronze Age palaces of Crete to the volcanic thermal pools of Ischia, a former political prison in the Gulf of Thailand, to the 180 million-year-old ecosystems of the Seychelles. We're going through 5 islands chosen for their beauty, but also for the folklore that shaped them and the history that defined them. Crete is Europe's oldest organized civilization, and most travelers to Greece ignore the island, let alone visitors who don't realize what they're standing on. Knossos is where most people begin, and it earns the visit. The frescoes depicting bull-leaping rituals are not decorative mythology. They are records of a culture sophisticated enough to engineer multi-story palaces with drainage systems in 2000 BC. Walk the palace corridors, and the stone carries a specific cold, even in summer heat. But Knossos is also where most people stop. Zominthos sits at nearly 4,000 feet above sea level in the White Mountains, a Minoan palace so far from the tourist trail that the silence when you arrive feels almost accusatory. Then there is the Ideon Cave, where Rhea hid the infant Zeus from his father Kronos. The guardian Curetes danced with their shields to mask the baby's cries, crashing bronze against bronze so the sound would not carry. The Samaria Gorge runs nearly 10 miles through a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. The Crete, Crete's endemic ibex, moves through the White Mountains above you. Your boots find limestone carved by water over thousands of years. Crete has been continuously inhabited for 9,000 years. The olive trees in Arcanes predate most of Western civilization. The Phaistos disc, recovered from the palace ruins, carries an undeciphered script that archaeologists still cannot read. The island is still withholding things, and that is one of the many reasons to go. Koh Tao means Turtle Island. It was mapped in the 1820s, used as a royal retreat by King Rama V in 1899, converted into a political prison during World War II, and then settled by fishermen in 1947, who simply arrived and stayed. The transformation from prison outpost to the dive capital of the world is one of the stranger arcs in modern island history, and it happened almost entirely by word of mouth. Centers island-wide certify around 80,000 new PADI divers each year. That number is staggering for an island this size, and it tells you something about what the water does to people when they get into it. The dive at Chumphon Pinnacle at night produces a bioluminescent plankton. The water glows around your hands. Local fishermen have told stories for generations of ghost lights beneath the surface, guiding lost boats back to shore. Above the surface, the John Suwon viewpoint rewards the hike with 360 degrees of Gulf of Thailand in every direction. The trail cuts through interior jungle that smells of wet earth and coconut, the same groves planted by the island's first settlers. Spirit houses dot the trailside, offerings left at each one, animist belief predating Buddhism by centuries. At Jorpor Roar on Sairi Beach, a sacred stone marks the site where King Chulalongkorn came ashore. Locals still leave offerings. The reverence is quiet and specific, not performed for visitors. The cross-island hike from Chalok to Tanot Bay passes World War II prison remnants half consumed by jungle. Koh Tao is the rare island that earns its present reputation through the weight of its past. The turtle spirits locals believe bless divers are still invoked. The offerings are still left. The plankton still grows. Come for the dive certification if you want. Stay for everything else. Ischia sits in the Gulf of Naples, with more than 100 thermal springs, a volcanic caldera that has been producing healing water since the ancient Greeks arrived and decided to stay. Homer knew this island. His references to mineral-rich waters in this region are not mythological. but geographical. The thermal pools at Sorghetto Bay are free, open to the sea, and accessible by boat or a climb down stone steps cut into the volcanic cliff face. The water runs hot enough that you adjust your position by inches. The cold sea pushes against one edge of the pool. The steam rises in the morning air, which smells of sulfur and salt. The Aragonese castle was built in the 5th century BC, rebuilt by Alfonso of Aragon in 1441, and has spent the intervening centuries as a fortress, a convent, a prison, and now a monument accessible by a bridge that appears at certain tides to float. Inside the castle complex, a freshwater spring once drunk by queens sits largely unmarked. Locals know it. Mount Epomeo rises over 2,500 feet from the island's center. The hike to the summit passes a hermit chapel carved directly into the tufa rock, where a monk lived in the steam vents and reported visions. The volcanic soil on the slopes supports over 700 plant species, a biodiversity density that reflects 3,000 years of continuous cultivation. La Mortella Gardens were built by a British composer as an act of obsessive devotion to this landscape. The Negombo section hides Japanese bridges and Thai pavilions in a botanical collection that shouldn't feel coherent, but does. Ischia receives a fraction of Capri's visitors, despite superior thermal infrastructure, more complex history, and a quieter place that Capri abandoned sometime in the mid-20th century. The Turanian nymph legends that attach themselves to the island's volcanic coves did so because the landscape produced the mythology naturally. The island's terrain has always demanded interpretation. The Seychelles granite outcrops are among the oldest exposed rock on Earth. When you press your hand against a boulder at Anslazio, you are touching a stone that predates the dinosaurs. That is not a metaphor. The Vallée de Mai on Praslin Island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that has been described as one of the closest existing approximations of the Garden of Eden, the coco de mer palms that grow only here. Local legend calls them the mermaid's nut, its shape suggesting the feminine and oceanic. The forest floor is cathedral quiet. The bird song is the only thing that moves and disturbs the feeling of solitude. Aldabra Atoll, the world's largest raised coral atoll and a UNESCO site accessible only by special permit, is home to over 150,000 giant tortoises. They outnumber humans on the atoll by a ratio that makes you reconsider which species is the visitor. Darwin called this kind of place a living museum. Curieuse Island was a leper colony before it was a tortoise sanctuary. The ruins of the colony's buildings are still standing in the forest, consumed gradually by roots and salt air. The transition from quarantine to conservation carries an immense historical weight that you feel when witnessing the tortoises moving through the undergrowth. The Seychelles sit 700 miles from Madagascar, with zero significant light pollution. The night sky here is the kind that produces navigational mythology. Ancient seafarers read these stars as maps. The Victoria Market on Mahe is the most direct route into the Creole culture that emerged from the collision of French, African, and Indian trade routes. Stonetown was not a fishing village that grew into a trading post. Archaeological excavations completed in 2017 confirmed a 1,000-year-old trade hub predating the Portuguese arrival by centuries, a correction to the origin story that most tour guides still haven't updated. The alleys of Stonetown were built to be navigated by people who knew them. They were not built for strangers. Getting lost in them is historically accurate. The Omani sultans who controlled Zanzibar in the 19th century built the House of Wonders as the first electrified building on the East African coast. The old fort next to it was constructed in 1699 on the ruins of a Portuguese church. The Anglican cathedral at the center of the old slave market was built with its altar positioned over the site of the whipping post. The architecture of the island is a record of every power that passed through it. The spice farms outside Stonetown are what the island traded its name for. The clove trees were introduced by Omani planters in the 19th century and are still the source of the island's most immediate sensory signature. Yozani Forest holds red colobus monkeys found nowhere else on Earth. The mangrove boardwalk that cuts through the forest interior carries a specific quality of silence, broken by the sound of water moving through root systems below your feet. At Chwaka Bay, 10th century Persian settlement ruins sit partially submerged at low tide. The Dhow building tradition in the coastal villages nearby connects directly to the Arab seafaring epics that map the Indian Ocean trade routes. The men who built those boats learned from men who learned from men who were navigating open water before most of Europe had accurate coastline maps. Jinn spirits are said to inhabit Stone Town's oldest alleys. Whether you engage with that belief or not, the alleys at dusk, the call to prayer mixing with the smell of grilling seafood from the Forodani night market, produce a specific compound experience that the word atmosphere is not large enough to contain. The best island destinations on this list are not interchangeable. Crete in July is different from Crete in April, the same way Zanzibar during the spice harvest is different from Zanzibar in peak beach season. Time your visit to the experience you want, not to the cheapest available flight. Private guides are not a luxury add-on to any of these islands. They are the difference between the surface and what's underneath it. The Zominthos Palace without context is a ruin. With context, it is the highest elevation Minoan site in existence, still being excavated, still producing answers to questions the island raised 4,000 years ago. With every island on this list, the most significant experiences are the least visible ones. The Hermit Chapel on Ischia, the World War II Trail on Koh Tao, the Slave Market Altar in Zanzibar, the Ancestral Cave in the Yasawas. None of these are on the standard itinerary, but all of them are available. The dunes, the walls, the alleys, the ramparts. These 5 islands were shaped by volcanoes, trade routes, exile, faith, and 180 million years of geological patience. What they offer a traveler who arrives informed is participation. The link in the description connects you with a Zicasso travel specialist who builds these itineraries from the ground up for the specific traveler you are. This is the Zicasso Edit. Subscribe for more.